Oh, hey there.
Hey there, broski.
Hey,
Bromigo. Hey
what's
there,
up,
bro.
man? How are you doing? Today I will show you something very exciting. I'm going to show you how to create an indie chord progression, which I promised to do quite some time ago, but I finally found out the best way to explain it to you, so I will do that. I'm going to get right into it. We're going to create an indie chord progression, basically create an indie song, and to do that, I really recommend you first to watch my other two videos on a bit of music theory. One of them is called Playing in the Guitar the Scales, the other one is called Playing in the Guitar the Chords. Especially the beginning of those videos, really me explaining the system and the concept, you could call it, will help you a lot in this video, especially the one on scales. So yeah, watch those first. I will also summarize it now shortly so you remember some stuff, but if you haven't seen that yet, check it out. To create a chord progression, it's nice to first choose a key that we're going to play in. And that basically means when you're playing in a certain key, it means that the notes you're using will basically fit around those chords. So the most of the chords will have notes of that key in it, of that scale, you could also say. So you can write something in C major, in D minor, in really every scale possible that you can think of. So that's the first thing. And how do you know which key or scale, but I mean by that, a song is in? There are a couple of ways to do that. First of all, it's to look at the notes, as I just said, because the notes will fit around the key. Also, it's a lot of times the first note, first chord. Also, it's a lot of times the last chord, which is a bit, fake. But there's also another way, which is quite nice, I think, to find it out. It's really the note that is nicest to end the song on. So, for example, when you have a chord progression like this, the ending of the song, where would we like to end on? It's the C. So this song is in C major. Again, it's more of a feeling thing, but you will be better at figuring out which song a key is in after this video, because I'm completely going to explain the whole concept of chords in a key. So don't worry about it if it's now too fake. Why am I going to teach you this? First of all, you can create songs using the things I'm going to tell you, and also it's very nice to create lead guitar solos on or riffs. It will be very useful for that as well. And also it's cool to brag about that you know that stuff, so you're welcome. Anyways, back to the basics. I'm going to need to explain this to you before we can create something, because this is the idea of the video. I'm going to explain you something. Okay, so first of all, let's go quickly back to the basics. A scale is really a pattern of notes chosen from all the notes available to us. So you have quite some notes in music, you could say. So you have C, C sharp, D, D sharp, etc. But a scale picks out a certain notes of all the notes available in a certain pattern. So for major scales, this pattern is fixed, and also for minor scales and also for other sort of scales, this pattern is really fixed. So C in this example is very easy because C doesn't have any flats or sharps. It's basically a C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, as you can see here. So now we already know the scale, and you will be better at that when you watch a video about scales, but this is a scale, the C scale, nothing too weird. And now we have these notes available to us. So if we want to write a song, we could only use this, so we could create some sort of bass line with these notes. So, for example, so I'm playing a couple of notes, but it would be nice to know which chords we can play, because when you want to create a chord progression, it's nice to play chords. So to do that, we need to harmonize. But first of all, I'm going to put some numbers under the chords, basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, because as you can see, the first note is the C, the second note is the D, etc. So we need to do that first. It will be useful later on. But as I said, we want to play chords. So we could now randomly just play an F major, or F minor, or G minor, or G major. We could do that, but not every chord will sound that nice. And sometimes you want a chord to not sound so nice, to create some dissonance. But we want to know which chords sound nice, because we want to create a nice indie chord progression, especially an indie chord progression. So we also want to create jazz chords, but I will get into that later. We first really need to do this, and you need to understand this to do that. If you know what I mean. So, okay, we want to harmonize these notes, as I just said. What it basically means is that we want to layer notes on top of each other. So now we only have a C note, but we want to know which notes can we layer on top of the C to create a C chord. And we want to do the same thing for the D, same thing for the F, etc. for all these notes. So we know which chords we can play in this scale. And what's important to remind is that this works for every scale. So also for the for every major scale. So also for the D major and the E flat major and stuff like that. This system that we're going to use, these rules of thumb work for each major scale. The only difference really is that you have to place different notes in the beginning. So the G scale will be G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, instead of what we're using now. But the numbering system and all that will be exactly the same. But we're going to harmonize. So as I just said, we're going to layer notes on top of each other. Now how are we going to do that? Ooh, that will be probably very difficult, Jen, so panic. No, it's not. It's very easy. The only thing that we need to do is we need to do 2 times 2 steps, you could see it, or pick 1, 3, 5. It sounds weird now, but it really isn't. What I mean by that is we're starting from the note that we want to create a chord on, which is the C in the beginning. Then we want to go 2 steps further, and again 2 steps further. So 2 times 2 steps, you could see it. And by that I mean that you start from the C, then go 2 steps forward, the E, then again 2 steps forward is the G. And then we have the C chord. Like that. And we do the exact same thing for each note. So for the D we do the exact same thing, which we start from the D, then go 2 steps further to the F, then again 2 steps further to the A, and we have a D chord. Now you might be wondering, okay, now I only know the notes of this chord. Is it a major or minor chord? I will get into that. First we have to do this very shortly, and then I will explain to you how to know if it's a major or minor chord. So we did it for the D, then for the E the exact same thing. E 2 steps forward, G, again 2 steps forward, A, and we have E, G, A as the third chord. Then I will also do the F chord as the last one. The rest you can figure out by yourself, and you can see it also here. F is F, 2 steps forward to the A, again 2 steps forward we go back to the C again. Because as you might notice, it ends at the B, but it goes further at the C. So C is really 8 or also 1. You could go on infinite times, but yeah, going from the F 2 steps forward then to the A, and then when you go 2 steps forward from the A, you go A, B, C. So first step is B, second step is D, and then you get the F chord. So nice. Now of course you know the notes of these chords, which is nice, but you want to know if it's a major or minor chord. There are 2 ways to figure that out. One of them is to check out my last video on chords. There I really explain what the difference between a major and minor chord is, how you can see that. And it's basically all about when you want to know if the D chord that we're having here, if it's a D minor or major, you have to look at the D minor scale and see or the D major scale, and look at the third note really of the D major scale, you could say, and see if that's diminished or not diminished. If that sounds really weird, now don't worry. There's also a very easy rule of thumb for this, which is nice. It is that the first, the fourth and the fifth chord are major chords of the scale, and the other ones are minor, except for the 7th chord, that will be a diminished. So that's already quite a jazzy chord. So you got that? I will repeat it again. The first, fourth and fifth are major chords, the 2nd, the 3rd, the 5th and the 6th are minor chords, and the 7th one is a diminished. And this is for every major scale. So this rule of thumb doesn't work for the minor scale, but I might do the minor scale in a different video, but the major scale is really used a lot, so you will already go quite far using this one. But that's the rule of thumb. So I will write it down also here if I'm doing everything correctly, and you can see each chord that we can play. So, and you can already see again this B diminished, which is already quite a jazzy chord that you find in some indie songs. However, it isn't really used that much as a 7th chord in a chord progression. So as a 7th chord in a chord progression, it's sometimes an artist will play a B minor or B flat. So there are ways to step out of this system, as you might already know, because of course you're totally free to do whatever you want. You don't have to play these notes, these chords like this. It just might sound nice. But I will get on later in the video about stepping out of the system, and that sounds really weird, but I mean by that stepping out of this idea really that we're using now, this scale, this diatonic scale I think is called. But when we want to play these chords, you can see that it sounds very much nice in harmony, so it sounds all very clear together. C, D, E, F, G, A minor, and then we have this diminished. And the diminished doesn't really sound that jazzy anymore in this, because it fits so perfectly in the scale. That's why it sounds so nice. That's why we're also using these chords, is that they sound nice because they fit in the scale. So there's nothing too weird going on. They don't clash together, these notes. Which is nice, but it's also sometimes something you don't really want. You want to create some sort of tension sometimes, but I will get into that. First we need to do this. But now we have these chords, which is nice, but they are really only major and minor chords, and a diminished one. But as you might know, in indie songs, especially artists like Mac DeMarco or King Cruel especially, they a lot of times they don't play these normal major and minor triads. They play major 9s and minor 7s and dominant 9s or dominant 7s. So we want to do that as well, because we're going to create an indie chord progression, and that's why this video is called Making an Indie Chord Progression. So now is the question, how are we going to do that? How are we going to figure out if we can play a minor 7 or major 7? So can we play can we play a D minor 9? Can we not play a D minor 9? Ooh, spooky, difficult. No, it's not. Again, it's very simple, because we're doing the exact same thing. We're only layering one top of notes again on the chord. So we already have these triads. So for example, the C, E, G. Then we want to put a note on top of that as well to create a more jazzy major and minor chords, major 7s and minor 7s. So it's easy again. All we have to do is do again 2 steps further. So we start from the C, we already did C, E, G, so 2 steps, 2 steps, 2 steps. Then from the G, we go again 2 steps further, which adds the B to it. So it's C, E, G, B is the first more jazzy chord that we're having. Now you might also wonder, is it a major 7 or minor 7? It's a major 7. You might already have guessed that, because the chord is C major, and adding another note to it makes it C major 7. So it's a C major 7. Then for the D we do the exact same thing, doing 2 times 2 steps, but really 3 times 2 steps now. So we're creating 4 notes or 3 notes we're layering on top of the D, which makes it a D minor 7. So we're only really writing 7 after the D minor. Then for the E it's the same thing, E minor 7, and again layering 2 notes again on top of it. I hope you understand. And for the F, again the same thing. So again put another layer on it by going 2 steps further. So we end at the C and we go 2 steps further, which adds the E to it. So we have an F major 7. Now for the G, which is very important, the G it won't become a G major 7, it will become a G7. I think it's called a G dominant 7. The difference between those, to know that, watch my last video, but it's basically, it sounds different. This is a G major 7, this is a G7. And so that's always for the major scale. The 5th note will be a dominant 7 and also a dominant 9. It won't become a G major 7. So that's also something to remember. You could see it as well as a rule of thumb. So you have the rule of thumb of 1, 4, 5 will be major, the rest minor, and the 7th one will be diminished, and the 5th one will become a dominant chord. I think it's how they call it. So it won't be a major 7 or minor 7, it will be a 7 or a 9, not a major 9 or minor 9. However, you can try to play a G major 7, of course, that might sound perfectly nice as well, but when you want to follow the scale as we're doing now, it will become a G7. And again, that works for every scale. So not that the G7 is the 5th note of every scale, but it will be that when you're using the G major scale, the 5th note of the G major scale will become a 7 chord. So for G it's G, A, B, C, D. It will be a D7 when you're doing this. I hope you understand it. So try to do it as well with different scales to understand what we're doing. Then the A minor will become an A minor 7. The B diminished will become a B diminished 7. But again, you won't really find that one a lot in songs. So now we already have quite some jazzy chords. With these chords we could write a song already, which is nice. But some artists even use major 9s and minor 9 chords. To do that, to create those, we do the exact same thing as we're doing the whole time, layering another layer of notes on top of it by going 2 steps further. So when we want to create a C major 9, we've ended at the B, then again 2 steps forward, we add the D to it, which creates a C major 9. And we can do that for all these notes. And so the D minor 7 will become D minor 9, the E minor 7 will become E minor 9, F major 7, F major 9. The G, as I said, is different, it will become a G9, so not a G major 9 but a G9. And the A minor 7 will become A minor 9, and the B7 diminished, B diminished 7, will become a B minor 7 diminished. Now we really have everything we need to know to create a chord. We have a scale and we know all the chords that we can play in this scale. So we could create a chord progression in the key of C in this example, and it's nice if it ends on C or begins with C. It doesn't have to. You can even create a chord progression in C without playing the C chord. There are lots of these tricks you can do. But now we really know enough to create a chord progression in C, and you know really everything now to create a chord progression in every scale. You only have to do the exact same thing, but starting from different notes and using different notes. But the system of two steps as I'm explaining, and layering notes on top of each other is the same for every major scale. Of course, you also have minor scales, and you have minor harmonics, which will all create different chords. So that's also how to create something different. Because now you might be thinking, okay, if everybody uses this system, then every song should sound a lot like each other. And you're sort of correct a bit, and also sort of not. There are some chord progressions, so something like 1, 4, 5, and by that I mean the first chord of the scale, the fourth and the fifth chord of the scale. Those played are used a lot in songs. And you have also quite different famous progressions like 1, 5, 6, 4. There's also a famous chord progression that you will see in every video that's called play 100 songs with only these 4 chords. That's the 1, 6, 4, 5. 1, 5, 6, 4 chord progression. So some of these are really used quite a lot. And now it would be nice to sound different from that, of course. And of course there's lots of ways to sound different from other songs. It's to play different rhythm, use different instruments. Of course you have a whole different melody to use. But what indie musicians really do, and I'm talking more about the indie jazz musicians, a lot of times they pick quite a normal chord progression, maybe a bit poppy you could call it. There's nothing wrong with that, so nothing too weird, something like 1, 4, 5 as I said, or even 1, 6, 1, 5, 6, 4, something like that. They use those chord progressions but then play jazzy chords. And jazzy chords are the minor 7s and major 9s and stuff like that. And another way that they create something different, or that really makes indie jazz is that they try to step out of this idea of this scale, but only a little bit. And by that I mean is that what's nice to do and to create a bit of tension, and what a lot of jazz is based around, is to have this scale system that we're using, and then try to do some cool tricks to step out of it, to make it sound a bit dissonant, to create a bit of tension, to then relieve it by going back nicely into the scale. So there are some ways to do that that are known to do. So for example, playing a fourth major instead of a fourth minor, so in this case an F minor instead of an F major, is something like that. It doesn't fit in the scale, but it still sounds nice. So there are some things like that really work. A lot of those stepping out of the scale ideas are based on ear, so you might try what sound nice. So I do really recommend you as well to use this, but also use it to not use it. So to look at it and to look at this scale system that we're using now, and then sometimes try to step out of it. So playing an A major instead of an A minor, or even a B flat instead of a B. Some stuff like that will give songs a bit of more tension, and which is something that indie musicians use to create this more jazzy feeling in their quite poppy chord progressions, you could say. So a great example of that, because of course you might not believe me and you're very good to be skeptical. No, I am saying true things, I don't know why I said that, but a great example for that, which is a song in C major by Mac DeMarco, is Let Her Go, I think, which is basically 1, C, 4, and 5. This is a G chord, but it's quite a weird G chord, and that's where it comes in. What I said is that they use quite a poppy chord progression, but then a few chords, or only one, they use a one that sounds a bit more jazzy, that's a bit out of the scale. Here he's playing some sort of G7, but with a B in the bass, which makes it sound a bit more jazzy. yeah, that's quite a technique that's used quite a lot to use a poppy chord progression and then play lots of chords that fit in these major and minor sevenths and stuff like that, but then only a couple of chords that step out a bit out of it to create some tension. And also what's very interesting to know is that Meg DeMarco especially really knows quite a bit of this system. I can remember an interview where he said like, oh, I'm now playing the 5 and I'm going back to the 1. And by that he's basically saying he's playing the 5th chord of the scale and then going back to the 1st chord, because that's something that's also used a lot and that sounds very nice. You might probably also hear that in this case when you're playing a G7. It really asks to go to the C. It really resolves very nicely into each other. So. And you see that in a lot of Meg DeMarco songs, that Meg DeMarco plays the 5th chord of the scale and then goes back to the 1. Especially, for example, when the song is in E major. He will play as the last chord the B, or the 5th note of the E major scale, which is the B, and then play the B7, so to go back to the 1, which is the E in that case. So he really knows his stuff and he uses this as well, this idea. Also, you might notice that some of these chords really look a lot like each other. So for example, the C looks quite a lot like the A minor 7. There's only like one note that's different. And you can use that as well. So you can also try to play a chord that's almost the same as the chord that you're trying to say. So you could also write a song in C major starting with the A minor 7. So then you really imply that it's a C, but it's actually an A minor 7. So that works as well. So you can play around as well with chords that sound a lot like each other. Also jazz musicians really make a lot of use of that. So instead of an A minor chord, they will play some cool chord with diminished nines in it that sounds a lot like the A minor chord, but only has a couple of notes that are not like the A minor chord. Boy Pablo really knows how to do that very well. So you will see Pablo play a chord progression in the verse and then again in the second verse, and they sound the same, but he's really using some very clever tricks to play chords that sound a lot like each other, that you don't notice it, but you do a bit because it sounds just a tad bit different. Enough to not notice it, but also enough to notice it a bit. It's really brilliant. You can see that a lot in Boy Pablo's music. Now we don't know how he does that. He might just do it on ear. He might use this that we are using. There's no way of telling, but it's brilliant. So that's what's most important. Now, as I said, we're going to create a song together using this to practice. I'm totally coming up with this at the moment. I didn't think this through at first. Let's play a chord progression that is 1, 4, 2, 5. I hope you understand what I mean by that now. It means playing the 1st chord of the scale, the 4th chord of the scale, the 2nd chord of the scale, and the 5th chord of the scale. We're doing it in a C major to keep it simple, and you know now what those chords are. So it's a C, and we can play a C major 7, we can play a C major 9. You can also even layer notes on top of that, but then you will have quite intense chords, and it will become quite difficult, but we know enough now to play some jazzy chords. So we could start with C major 7, then F major 7, maybe a D minor 9 might be nice then. So we're playing the 2nd chord, which is a D minor 9. We can also do a D minor 7 or just a D minor, but the D minor 9 in my opinion sounds nice now. And then a G7 or a G13 even. And a G13, and a G13 you will get by layering again a note on top of the G9, you could say. Then you get a G13, but you don't play the 9th note. Hey there, this is future Jens, editing Jens. I'm editing a video and I'm saying something wrong. What I meant to say is that when you play a G9, you can layer one note on top of that, and then you get a G11, and then layer one note on top of that, and then you get a G13. But when you're playing a G13, you're not playing the 9 and the 11th one. You're only playing the 7th note, you could call it. So you're playing the G7 with the 13th note on top of it. Also, another way to make this make more sense is that when you start from the G and count 13 steps upwards, you will get the E, and you add the E to make it the G13. Well, you add the E to the G7 to make it the G13. So that might also make sense, because G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, which is, I'm this is 13 I meant now. So yeah. Also, I noticed that it's quite a lot of theory, so I have a joke now in between to make it a bit more delightful, the video. What's the difference between a salad and a baby? Nobody gets angry when you toss a salad. Okay, let's get back to me rambling on about this. But it will be nice, by the way. I will teach you a song that we made together, so that's nice. See you in 1 second. And then we can go to this chord, which is, as you can see, or maybe here, is out of the scale. It's a G7 with a sharpened fifth. To know exactly what that means, again, watch the video on chords. As I said earlier, it's nice to sometimes try to step out of the scale that you're playing in the key, and we're exactly doing that now, because this G7 with a sharpened fifth has a D sharp in it, and as you can see, there's no D sharp in the notes that we can play, but it still sounds nice because when you play it together, it adds a bit of tension. This chord that has notes out of the scale in it, but it still sounds nice because you relieve this tension by going from the G7 with a sharpened fifth to the C major 7. So we're really using this idea that I just said about the fifth note of a chord that sounds so nice. We're even making it more, giving it more tension, that it even resolves maybe a bit more, even more nicer to the C major 7. But again, we're stepping out of it. We're stepping out of the scale a bit. This was an example of a chord progression that you can create now. I recommend you to do it on different scales, as I have said a couple of times. And to add a bit of variety, again, you can do something like I just did, play a chord that doesn't fit well, but it might sound nice. And this also, you can play a different rhythm and stuff, and you can play different drums. It's not that you really have to stick to the system. I mean, there are lots of artists that create music just by ear, or have a vague idea of this and use it just a bit. I think someone like Meg DeMarco knows a bit about this, but also lets it go some time to play chords that clash a bit more, to create something more jazzy. Also, when you want to, you can now also analyze songs using this, so you can see a song and then you can look at the chords of a song and then try to figure out which key it's in, and then looking at which number each chord has really. That will be, for some songs it will be easy, like a song of Gus Dapperton. I think that's quite doable, but when you're looking at artists like King Cruel, they're really almost too brilliant because what an artist like King Cruel or Malt High Club, like really more almost pure jazz artists, they switch between keys. They use these clever tricks that I just told you about, it, like chords that sound a lot like each other, or they use some weird minor harmonic, which isn't weird, but they use some minor harmonic scale to create these chords. So yeah, that will be a lot trickier, because as I said, what I'm telling you now only works for the major scales. Minor scales are different. It's the same idea of layering notes, but the 7th note, for example, won't be a diminished one, it will be the second one. So there's difference in between that, but it's still the idea for also the minor and the minor harmonic is still that you're layering notes on top of each other, which is harmonizing really. Although Malt High Club has a song that's called Homage, and there they even talk about this numbering system that I'm talking to you about now. They say the song is in 2, 5, 4, 6, something like that. So they tell you basically in the lyrics the chord progression that they're using the numbering system, which is very interesting. It's in minor, by the way, so it's a tad bit different. Yeah, so check it out. That might be a useful practice as well, to see if they're actually correct in their statement. When you want to listen to some brilliant harmony, the Beach Boys are really good at creating beautiful harmony, because what's also interesting to do, I'm now rambling on a bit, but it's also interesting and exciting, is that you can, for example, the C note, C chord that we're having here, the C major 9, you could also have 4 people sing each note, and then you also create a chord. So that's some things that I use as well. Yeah, and sometimes you can even find a lot of artists really use this numbering system to talk about music. So they're saying, oh, this song is a 1-6-4-5 chord progression, or oh, this song is 1-4-5 chord progression, stuff like that. It's also a very useful way to talk about music, because when you know that a song has the chord progression of 1-4-5, you can play this for every scale, so you can switch keys very easily, because you do have to know the notes that are in a key, but it will be a lot easier to switch keys, because you know that you have the first, the fourth, and the fifth chord to play of a scale. And yeah, that's something very useful as well. However, I do think that I explained quite a lot in this video. It was quite a blast, it was quite long. I hope everything was clear. If you want me to talk more about this, because it's very interesting, we can also analyze songs using this system, you could say. And again, I could also explain something about how to do this with a minor scales, almost the same but just a tad bit different, as I just told you. Also, we can try to look at creating second guitar melodies, so creating a melody over these chords, which will also be interesting to do. Let me know if you would like that as well. I really hope everything was clear. Also, I shouldn't forget, I also want to give a huge thank you to Dario for his donation to my PayPal and for becoming a patron. Thank you so much for your support in this way. And I think that's really everything I wanted to say. Thank you so much for watching.